Good evening and welcome to my live channel. My name is vandanazayedalnahayan. I'm the wife of His Highness Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahayan. I am a Christian and I shared my views and thoughts with my late husband, His Highness Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahayan, and he never opposed it. So we are very grateful today for the way God has brought me here and the last 10 years that I worked as a social worker. And then I actually, in the last 5 years particularly, I committed myself to studying narcissism and the effect it had on the world today, particularly when people are doing any kind of media, social work, or wherein how it affects the actual value of things. Now, what I wanted to bring out is even if we are studying narcissism at any point, or that there are a lot of clinical psychologists today who have become an outstanding voice for this subject of narcissism. But I just want us to draw in a little more deeper, and we are living in a society which is made up of people who have different values. They have a different culture. So when we talk about, there's so much freedom in the West, but there are also groups who are cultish. Even in the Western world, there are issues where people are controlling, manipulative. So, what we need to understand is that human beings are the same wherever you go. You can be from any culture or country or place. Everyone has faced the same issue, nevertheless. And so, I wanted to bring out a very important aspect of self containment. Now, uh, if a person has gone through a lot of suffering, they tend to wear blinds, like they have a blind side. So they tend to not, they react, their defense mechanisms come into play at the time. One of them would be betrayal or flee and run, right? They will take whatever is given to them because they are filled with fear and foreboding of the events that may occur because of what they kept seeing. So, I wanted to really get into this part is that whenever a person has been subjected to a certain amount of torture or a certain amount of behavior or a certain amount of pain and suffering, there's a tendency to react in a different way. So we just talk a little bit about those things, which is really important. And one of those things that we need to talk about is, let's talk in a normal, in a normal society, what are the things that can really affect our daily lives, right? What is it that we really need to live in life which is happy, which is finance, definitely. But let's talk about the other aspect of is when we walk into a home. Some years ago, my husband, my father, we went into a home, and as we entered, it was a very prosperous house. But the mother of that home came out and she said in a very loud and cutting voice, either I stay here or you stay there. And we got very frightened, you know. Um, Even though they had, then we turned to our host and said, how do you live here? So horrible. So when we come to this understanding, her son had addiction problem, alcoholic problem, because of the kind of one person's behavior that seemed to spill over in a toxic manner. But where does this young lady stayed calm throughout? She found a way out of a situation, and finally one day, you know the alcoholic husband, I don't because of his drinking, he lost his life. So I wanted to say this to you all, is that slowly things began to change in her life, and she found a place for her own. and she built a world around her which was stable and strong and happy. So there is a place, this is what we call self containment, to be contained. That means no matter what happens around you, you remain in your peace of mind. It's a very deep thing which I wanted to tell you is that understanding God in a deeper manner is just not going. People go to church, they pray, but tomorrow if something happens to them, they will be totally different people. Correct? Yes or no? So, how is it very important is that when you are contained in a situation, and let's talk about this in a very different way, or we talk about how many people prefer that I speak from biblical point of view because I am a Christian. But there are many instances of many great teachers who were confronted with a very frightening situation. For example, a wild elephant was let loose in front of Buddha, and that elephant came. But because for whatever reason, suddenly the elephant stopped and did not attack this teacher. Let us think about the other aspect, is that did Jesus encounter these things? Yes, he did, because he said the most um, heretic thing. For in a Semitic world, you do not call God your father, and he said, God is my father. They wanted to kill him and throw him over the cliff, but Jesus moved away from that place and they could not touch him. You see, they dragged him to the end of the cliff, but it was not his time, number one. And number two is that somehow he moved away from the crowd, and in their screaming, he just came out and he walked away, and they could not kill him. This is self containment. That means to be peace and love is something which is not every time you are. It's easy to be peace and love to somebody when everything is going fine for you, but when it is not going fine for you, what are you going to do? Are you still going to be able to reach out to somebody in need? Now we are taught this from very young. We used to, parents were narcissistic parents, so they, if something this for person comes, they used to slap us up and hit us around. You sit and clean this wall and do this kind of work. And so, we be still be crying. But when the guests came, you are not allowed to cry. You have to show a smile. Yeah. We were told that he should not see the tears. It would look very bad. That is how we were. And I'll tell you another incident. You see, we were four sisters, three sisters, and see, the third sibling had many issues. Number one is her clothes were never on time. She was disorganized. She played more. She was not interested in studies. Her books would be everywhere. Homework would not be done. Her pencil would not be sharpened. All kinds of things. So we would be dressed, Ranjan and myself, and we would stand outside. We were living in a cathedral, you see, we would stand outside, wait. But Probita was never ready. Was for her to get up in the morning and get dressed. She was never ready. And of course, the reaction of her mother was different. Here was a woman who just went like a rocket. They had to reach the school at 7:30. Nothing was ready. And so she allowed that situation to take over, in which she could hear a voice outside, you know, the names in Malayalam that came out, and also, in English it doesn't sound so bad. Um, she was called elephant. She was also called donkey. Then she was called donkey come elephant. That was, but we made a joke of it. You see, then she felt very bad later. But you see, in Malayalam, we were called both these names, donkey come elephant. And so I made a joke one day, and then that was the end. Okay, she never But it took many years for us to understand that to be self contained, no matter what happens, is for you to understand your focus. You see, in archery, very important, is that when you are shooting in the middle of the battle, you see, you watch the movie Lord of the Rings, the enemy is coming, right? But you have to wait for the command, right? You have to wait for the command. The shivering, then one arrow suddenly went and then it all went haywire, correct? Because somebody made a mistake. But in the army, the commander will give the command. Doesn't matter if they are coming like ants, full speed. You have to hold your ground. That is very important. It's not denial. Then denial is to ignore a situation which is like an ostrich. You put the 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 sand is coming, the enemy is coming. We pretend we can't see and put in the ground. हमने अभिनव Andrews, but that is not the situation that we need to react when we know that a situation is beyond your control. Self-containment must take over, not panic, but self-containment. Now, let me tell this one last story. And this is not happening to us, it happened to somebody else. She was, she became a Christian. Her husband, very rich man. They live in California. And there are forest fires that happen. And they were sitting in their home, and suddenly this dry forest fire occurred. So, you know, our husband just totally freaked out. He said, "There's no fire engine, everything's coming," screaming and yelling. So, all she did was, she's a Christian, baptized believer. She took a magazine man to read. And he told her, Joanna, how on earth are you just not doing anything? You're just sitting and watching this fire, and then it stopped. When we were little, we lived in a house, partly asbestos, and these people, they built the house around a tree which was half cut. So if a storm were to occur, the tree would fall on the house, and the asbestos cannot contain such a big tree, right? So the storm began to occur, breeze, full speed, cyclonic breeze. But we were not bothered. We were playing, and only our father was worked up, not bothered. He said, "It's going to rain, there's going," but what can you do? There are certain things that you need to understand in self containment is to accept the situation which is beyond your control and allow God to take over. And that is the faith that we need to live in this world. Is not to wait for some disaster to strike. No. That is why we need to have self containment. Self containment doesn't allow us to uh, put us in trouble. It first of all gives us a foresight to see what is beyond and what can happen. And so, a person who's self contained has a lot of foresight also. And therefore, they are able to prevent situations that may occur, God forbid. But if something were to happen, now recently we had an incident. The rent was purposely not paid, but somebody actually uh, riled up the flat owner and one hand, and then after, when that didn't work, they came here pretending to be flat owners. Whether Abhinav was hand in glove, I'm not sure, because he wanted me out of here, or his fear. You see, he has a fear of abandonment, fear of, he had these fear things, and then we beyond the street. I don't know what. A foresight is very short. Yeah? So you cannot depend on people like that in that manner for them to make decisions. They cannot at this point, maybe later. where very soon maybe they will learn, as you stay contained and grounded in the faith and love of God, you will understand clearly your decision. If you do anything outside that, it's not self containment. Okay. So then it's very important for us to understand. They came here one day, they came. So I got some good advice. Someone, he said, never open the door, you know. So this is a legal advice I got. So first of all, we never opened the door. They rang the doorbell. And the ringing of the doorbell is a person who is disturbed. People who are disturbed, not contained, have narcissistic behavior. Have you noticed? They're not contained. They have learned to cover up over the years, but in reality, they are not contained. They're actually worked up inside. First of all, your your self containment, your acceptance of who you are, your love for people, your community care, all those things upset their apple cart. Okay, that is like pressing buttons in them by which they cannot, contain those things. So they need to do something to get your attention. And one of them is like what we had that day was to ring the doorbell. So I never opened the door and I never said a sound. Not a sound came from there. Silence. Another time somebody came, rang the doorbell. Not a sound. I just put off all lights. I just sat quietly. They left. And they did that again. One day they came with the Abhinav. I told, don't say anything. Keep quiet. But I opened the door to see that was a mistake I made. Then I pushed the door. He started, I will give tomorrow, I'll give the rent tomorrow, I'll give the money tomorrow. I said, you don't, I have said 100 times to enough. You don't, that is not your headache. First of all, did you make the agreement? No. Is the agreement in your name? No. So then you don't say anything, you keep quiet, you sit quietly in your corner. Pretend that nothing happened. And a storm comes, it will go away. The storm has gone away. There is no storm, right? There's only peace and joy. But if we were to open the door and then we explain to them and then they will drag us out, God forbid, all these things is not self containment. We don't have to bite into somebody else's non containment, right? Suppose you're walking on the road, somebody threw apples all over the road. They threw. Okay, don't bother. You can help pick up, or you can carry on, pretend like nothing happened. But it's very important when to help, right? You also need to know when to help somebody and when not to help someone. That is also self containment. I hope this short video will help people to understand that what it is to be wise and understanding. Somebody can be screaming their lungs out, shouting, screaming, banging their fists. Is that self containment? No. Even a quiet person, they have a different snaky way of behaving. Is that self containment? No, it is not. Because they want to shake your very foundations, God forbid. And you need to say that you remember that Jesus Christ is our sure and firm foundation, right? So, just because I believe in Jesus Christ and I call him Lord and Savior does not make me a bad person. For Jesus is the Savior of the world, his love for us, that he came being God, he came to this world and he embraced the cross. Did that make him a schizophrenia? Does it make somebody schizophrenia that they're willing to take on pain and suffering? Does it make them? No. Does he enjoy the infliction? No, he did not. He told God, take this cup from me. So we must understand what it cost Jesus to give his life for you and me. Is that's first step of accepting him as Lord. But the other part is living that life of hope and joy in all its fullness. See, God has called us to freedom. He's not called us to live like in fear. That's not God. That is devil. What God wants is for people to be able to express themselves freely, be loving, and also within those understanding those boundary lines. Some people may not know them, so you can always tell them. Supposing a person doesn't dress a particular way, that does not make them bad at all. Same time, you must be know how to attire yourself in certain areas, in certain places, and you must be within that moral acceptable conduct. You should not be wear clothes that unnecessarily instigate um, conversation with, especially in a community which is uh, very strict. They have different purview. You need to respect people for the way they feel and think. That's very important. Vis-a-vis, if people don't dress the way you want, you think they should, that does not make them bad people at all. Okay, you may not like it, but they are happy to wear, right? So you should not feel or have any prejudice to anybody. That is not self-containment either. Okay, so thank you so much, and blessed evening to you all. Love is.